Picture this. You're alone, working a night shift, the world outside swallowed by darkness. The clock ticks slower, the air feels thick, and every creak sounds like a warning. Tonight, I'm sharing 5 true night shift horror stories that will crawl under your skin and haunt you long after the lights go out. These are real accounts from people who faced the unexplainable and barely made it through. Stay until the end, if you can handle it. Sarah took the night shift at an old warehouse on the outskirts of town because it paid double. The place was a maze of rusted metal shelves and dusty crates, lit by flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed like dying insects. She sat in a cramped security booth, a thermos of cold coffee her only company, with an ancient radio on the desk that never played anything but static. At 2 a.m., the silence felt heavier than usual, like the air itself was pressing against her chest. She was half asleep when the radio hissed to life, spitting sharp, grating static. She tapped the dial, annoyed, but it didn't stop. Then, through the noise, a voice whispered her name. Sarah. It was low, raspy, like gravel scraping bone, and it sent a chill down her spine. She froze, staring at the radio, its dials glowing faintly in the dim light. She unplugged it, hands trembling, but the static kept going, louder, angrier. The voice came again, closer now. Sarah, look behind you. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She spun around, expecting an empty booth, but in the reflection of the dark monitor, she saw it. A tall, featureless figure standing just outside the glass door, its head tilted unnaturally. She blinked, and it vanished. Her breath hitched as she checked the warehouse cameras, their grainy feeds showing nothing but endless rows of crates. She tried to laugh it off, blaming exhaustion, but then the radio screamed, a guttural, inhuman wail that vibrated in her skull like something clawing its way out of the static. Sarah grabbed her flashlight, its beam shaky in her grip, and bolted for the exit. Her footsteps echoed on the concrete, the lights above flickering in sync with her racing pulse. As she reached the door, the static surged, filling the air, and the voice whispered again, cold and deliberate, "You can't leave." Adul, the lock jammed. She yanked harder, tears streaming down her face, the air growing colder, thicker, like hands pressing against her lungs. Finally, the door gave way, and she stumbled into the freezing night, the warehouse looming behind her like a living thing. She never returned. When she called her boss the next day, he said the radio hadn't worked in years. A co-worker later told her about a worker who died in that booth decades ago, crushed by falling crates. And some say his voice still lingers in the static. What would you do if you heard your name in the dark? Mark had been a night nurse at a rural hospital for years, used to the eerie quiet of the graveyard shift. The building was old, its walls stained with age, the smell of antiseptic clinging to every surface. At 3 a.m., during a routine chart check, the call system buzzed. A weak, trembling voice came from room 214. "Please, it hurts. Help me." Mark frowned, checking the roster. Room 214 was empty, had been for weeks. No patient, no staff, nothing. He grabbed his clipboard and walked down the corridor, the linoleum squeaking under his shoes. The air grew colder as he approached, the fluorescent lights casting long, distorted shadows. The call light above room 214 glowed red, pulsing like a warning. He pushed the door open, and the room was pitch black, the bed untouched, the air heavy with a metallic tang. The call button dangled off the side, still pressed, swaying slightly as if someone had just let go. Mark's skin prickled. He called out, "Hello?" His voice echoed unanswered. He stepped inside, the door creaking behind him, and the temperature plummeted, his breath clouding in the air. Then, from the corner, came a low, wet cough, like someone choking on their own lungs. He fumbled for his flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness, revealing nothing but peeling paint and an empty IV stand. The coughing grew louder, closer, circling him, until it felt like it was inside his head, clawing at his thoughts. He backed toward the door, but it slammed shut with a force that shook the frame. The coughing stopped, replaced by a whisper, soft and pleading. "Don't leave me." Mark's heart raced as he yanked at the handle, the metal freezing under his fingers. A shadow moved in the corner of his eye, a hunched figure dragging itself across the floor, its limbs jerking at wrong angles. He screamed, the door gave way, and he stumbled into the hall, the coughing echoing behind him like a curse. When he checked the security footage later, it showed him entering an empty room, standing still for 2 minutes, the call light glowing the whole time. A week later, a co-worker told him room 214 had been sealed off years ago after a patient died in agony, begging for help that never came. The hospital never reopened it, but the call light still turns on some nights. Some doors should never be opened. Jake was a night shift courier, delivering packages across desolate highways under a moonless sky. The job was lonely but straightforward, until he got a late-night order to deliver a package to an address deep in the countryside. His GPS led him down a narrow dirt road, flanked by towering trees that seemed to lean inward, their branches scraping the van like fingers. The air smelled of damp earth and decay, and his headlights barely pierced the fog. The address was a crumbling house, its windows boarded, the porch sagging under years of neglect. Jake clutched the package, a plain brown box, heavier than it looked with no return address. He knocked, the sound swallowed by the night. No answer. He called the contact number, but it rang to a disconnected tone, the silence afterward deafening. As he turned to leave, a faint tap came from inside the house like fingernails on glass, slow and deliberate. His stomach twisted. The tapping grew louder, rhythmic, coming from a boarded-up window. Against every instinct, Jake peered through a crack in the boards. 2 pale eyes stared back, unblinking, inches from his face, set in a face too gaunt to be human. He stumbled back, dropping the package, its thud echoing in the stillness. The tapping stopped, replaced by a low hum, like a chant from deep within the house. Jake sprinted to his van, heart pounding, and floored the gas. The dirt road seemed to stretch forever, the trees closing in, their shadows twisting in his peripheral vision. When he glanced in the rearview mirror, the package was in the back seat. He hadn't picked it up. His hands shook as he pulled over, tossing the box into a ditch, its weight making an unnatural thud. He drove until dawn, refusing to look back. When he reported it, his boss said no such delivery was ever scheduled. Locals later told him the house had been abandoned since a family vanished decades ago, leaving behind only rumors of strange lights and whispers in the woods. Jake quit that week, but he still dreams of those eyes and the package that's never far behind. Lila was a night shift janitor in a 20-story office building, mopping empty floors under flickering lights. The building was old, its elevators groaning like they resented being used. At 1 a.m., she took the service elevator to the 15th floor, her cart rattling beside her. The doors closed, and the elevator began to descend, smoothly at first, then faster. The numbers ticked down, 14, 13, 12, then kept going, past the ground floor, past the basement, into negative numbers that didn't exist. The air turned icy, Lila's breath fogging in front of her. The lights flickered, casting jagged shadows on the walls. She jabbed the emergency button, but it was dead, the panel cold as frost under her fingers. A low hum filled the cabin, like a distant chant, growing louder, more insistent. The walls seemed to pulse, the metal creaking as if the elevator was alive, squeezing tighter. Lila sank to the floor, clutching her knees, her heart pounding so loud it drowned out the hum. Then a voice crackled through the speaker, soft and hollow. "You're not supposed to be here." The words felt like needles in her spine. She screamed, banging on the doors when they suddenly opened, revealing a pitch-black void. No walls, no floor, just an endless darkness that seemed to breathe. Something moved in it, a shape too vague to name, reaching toward her. Lila slammed the close button, her hands shaking, and the elevator lurched upward, the hum turning into a low growl. When it stopped, she was back on the 15th floor, the clock showing 1:02 a.m. Only 2 minutes had passed. Her cart was untouched, but her mop handle was bent, as if crushed by an unseen force. She never used that elevator again. A maintenance worker later told her the building had no sub-basements and the speaker system had been disconnected for years. An old article Lila found online mentioned the building was built over an unmarked burial ground, and workers had reported strange malfunctions in that elevator for decades. Some places take you where you were never meant to go. Ethan was a night guard at a strip mall, patrolling a sprawling parking lot under flickering streetlights. The job was monotonous. Empty stores, locked doors, the occasional raccoon rummaging through trash. But one night, at 2 a.m., he saw it, a figure at the edge of the lot just beyond the light, standing motionless, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. The air smelled of wet asphalt and something sour, like decay. Ethan called out, his voice trembling, but the figure didn't move. He grabbed his flashlight, its beam cutting through the rain, and approached. The figure turned, its movements jerky, like a puppet on broken strings, and vanished behind a dumpster. Ethan's boots crunched on gravel as he followed, his pulse racing. The space behind the dumpster was empty, no footprints, no trace, just the faint smell of something burnt. He chalked it up to exhaustion, but the next night the figure was back. Closer, its face a blur, like a photograph smeared by water. Each night it appeared nearer, always silent, always watching. On the fourth night, Ethan felt a cold breath on his neck as he patrolled, the air heavy with that sour smell. He spun around, flashlight shaking, but the lot was empty. His radio crackled and a voice, not his supervisor's, whispered, "Stop looking." The words felt like ice in his veins. On the fifth night, he felt a cold hand brush his shoulder, light as a spider's touch. He ran, the figure's silhouette flickering in every shadow, its head tilted, watching. Ethan quit the next day. A co-worker later found a security photo in the guard shack, time-stamped that final night. It showed Ethan standing alone in the lot, with a tall, blurred figure inches behind him, its head tilted at that same unnatural angle. The mall was built on land once used for unmarked graves, and locals say the figure still appears, waiting for the next guard to notice it. Some things don't want to be seen, but they see you. These 5 true night shift horror stories prove that the dark holds secrets we may never understand. From voices that shouldn't exist to figures that follow too closely, these accounts came from real people who faced the unthinkable and survived to tell the tale. Have you ever worked a night shift and felt something watching you? Or heard a sound that made your blood run cold? Share your story in the comments. I might feature it in the next video. If these tales shook you, hit that like button and subscribe, but only if you're brave enough to face the dark with us. Until next time, lock your doors and stay out of the shadows.